Welcome back, unprofessionals. Welcome to part 2 of our Tony Danza conversation. If you wandered in here on accident, just so you know, you're at the wrong place, because you need to go check out part 1 first. Otherwise, you're going to be totally lost. The whole plot and structure is going to be completely thrown off. So, take a moment and go back to our first conversation where Tony Danza says that me and Mealy are his best friends, and he likes us more than he likes you. And if you don't believe me, go listen to the episode and prove me wrong. Take this moment to like and subscribe and click whatever sort of positive things there are in your interface, which is not a euphemism, and just share the love. Yeah, without any further ado, enjoy Tony Danza, part 2. I made a rhyme.
Oh, okay.
Well,
all right, so we're gonna get started here, Tony.
Yes, sir.
The idea when I was thinking about you being on Oprah is, okay, this would be good for, my little baby podcast here. Get a famous person on. Maybe I can get a little more famous than I am. And as I read the book and your heart is poured out on the pages there, and as we talk to you about this, I'm like, it doesn't matter that Who's the Boss and Taxi and all that stuff. Tony Danza, you really are a teacher, and you have a teacher's heart, and you love kids, and like that's what I hope people who are listening now get. That's a lot of people tuned in because oh man, cool, Mealy and Tedisco got Tony Danza on the podcast. That's going to be great. I love him, and but you are a teacher more so, and you are an entertainer, obviously, and you're really good at that. But you really have a teacher's heart.
Coming from you guys, that's a big compliment. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, it's really sincere.
It is.
But we got to get back to the silly, unprofessional stuff, okay? So,
I want to talk about you crying, honey, because the only time you cry is over your students as well. So, Tony, don't feel bad.
Oh, I cry with my students? I cry with my students.
My best crying story is I had a great lesson plan one day. I walk into the classroom full of vigor and confidence, and David Cohen was there mentoring the class, watching me that day, and it just fell flat. And I remember thinking, wow, I was really perplexed because I really had worked hard. I put the time in, and the kids weren't interested. It was like the worst thing is when they're not interested.
Yes.
You can't interest. So I went into David. We have a post-mortem. After every class, he'd bring me in, he'd sit me down, and he'd go through what he thought was wrong, what he thought was right. And for the most part, he was just really supportive for the most part. And I tell you the truth, it may be something that would be a good idea for first-year teachers. Mm-hmm. To have somebody with them, because it's not easy that first year.
Yes.
Just the bookkeeping alone. I mean, you remember, what is it? You have to document everything.
Okay.
Anyway, we'd have these postmortems in the alumni room. So I go in, and he has a desk there, and I sit next to his desk, and we go through it. And he says, what do you think? I said, I don't know. I was like, I thought I had it going. He said, listen, I really think I'm hearing too much of you and not enough of them. Mm-hmm. And it was like a lightning bolt. I was like, oh, of course. What am I thinking? Because, you're so enamored with this image of the teacher standing at the blackboard lecturing. It's
right.
You got to get them to think. You got to get them to take part in it. So I said, great. It was great. I thought, oh, what a great idea. And I was still bummed out. And he said to me, look, remember this. And this was so great about David and so great about teaching. He said, tomorrow you're going to get another chance.
There you go.
That's what teaching gives you. It gives you another chance tomorrow. So be ready for tomorrow. And you're right, David. That's right. What was I thinking? And I went to get up. And I got about 3 inches off the seat, and he wasn't even looking at me. He was looking at a paper, and he went, did you cry yet? When he said, did you cry yet? I totally dissolved. I mean, I started to sob. Oh. And I was so embarrassed that I ran out into the hallway. And, of course, in the hallway, it's like 100 kids and 6 teachers.
Oh, no.
What killed me was, everybody, what's going on? Because I was literally sobbing as I walked by them. What struck me was really funny. I think some of the kids felt bad for me, but the teachers were like, now he knows.
There you go.
Sympathy, nothing,
Welcome to teaching, Mr. Hollywood. Yeah.
Exactly. Now you know, you banana.
Yes.
Oh,
No,
my goodness.
The paper
And that made it to the show, too. That was a great episode.
No, it was. That did make the show. Yeah, that did make the show. It really could have been something really special. I think if they would have, we were really coming into our own. I think too, but there's just a mentality there. You know, you do, like I do a show. Like when we went on a trip, we went to New York and we filmed a lot of that, and we had some fun. We had some stuff where, you know, I had what was his name, the Russian playboy, my guy. He made out with 2 girls on the bus, not 1, 2.
Oh,
like, what's going on here?
Oh my goodness!
Yes,
That was TV worthy.
Oh yeah, so there was some stuff. And one kid stole a matchbook from the restaurant and lit a match, and the principal smelled the match, and that was, you know. But it wasn't enough for them. You had to in it up, you know. They wanted girls fighting, I think, or something.
So hindsight's 20/20. This is my unprofessional opinion, Tony. You went with the wrong guy. You needed Ken Burns. It needed to be on PBS. And
would that be heaven? Ken Burns. Oh my gosh. No, that would be heaven. No, I tell you the truth. It wasn't that we went with the wrong guy. We just were, you know, ensconced in a TV reality world that this show wasn't, you know, made for. You need sensationalism. I mean,
you do.
You know, the Naked and Afraid. It's a hit.
Sensational.
Right.
And so now the show was stopped, but it didn't stop at the end of the year, though.
No. They stopped just about the end of the first semester.
But you kept teaching, right?
Yes. No, I stayed. I was gonna. I was making a lot less money, but I stayed. You know, first of all, I couldn't. I had the TV show was an adjunct that came afterwards. The idea of being a teacher was still, you know, where I wanted. And even though when the cameras were there, I was determined to be the best teacher I could be. Yeah. Because, as I say in the book, this was the only 10th grade they were going to get.
Right.
It wasn't like, you had 10th grade with Tony Danza? Oh, don't worry, we'll do it over. No. You know,
only if you had COVID-19.
Yeah. Well, you know, by the way, if you remember, we had the swine flu the year I was there.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Swine flu. But my big thing was the first kid that walked in was Nikaya, and I said to him, sanitize. Because I put the things on the wall, you know, the Purell on the wall. And this is long before people were used to seeing that stuff, you know.
Right.
So I was like, they thought I was a germ nut, you know. They really
a man after my own heart.
Yeah, but nobody got sick that year.
That's what I'm talking about.
Nobody in our class got sick that year. I'm not kidding you.
Nice.
My class had the greatest attendance because they washed their hands.
There you go. There you go.
Right.
I've been preaching that all my life.
Lindy makes me wash my hands all the time. Yeah.
Good.
She's like, "Did you wash your hands?" I'm like, "I washed my hands." We have little silly wifey husband arguments because in our house, my wife is like a little germophobic. Raw chicken is the most. It is like plutonium.
Nuclear waste.
Right. You know, and she doesn't like to touch it because it's yucky. She's like, have me do some stuff with the raw chicken. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be handling the plutonium here. She's like, wash your hands first. I'm like, this is the most germ-infested, bacteria-ridden thing in the universe. But my hands have to be clean before I touch it. I said, I don't understand. But okay, happy wife, happy life.
I'm with Lindy. I'm with Lindy, man. I'm a cook. My father did all the cooking in my family, so I got to watch my old man, and I learned. You know, I have a cookbook. You know the name of my cookbook? Don't fill up on the antipasta. And you know what that is? You know what that is?
Nice.
When the Italians of the early 1900s came here, they were determined, above all, to assimilate. It's one of the things the American government also was determined about. The Italians were very determined to assimilate, but they didn't want to give up their culture completely. They wanted to be Americans. America, get on the team. I could hear my father. But food became the way that they held on to their custom. And so it would manifest itself on Thanksgiving. Because on Thanksgiving, what you would have is an antipasta, which is this big thing. And then you would have a lasagna.
Oh.
Bread and everything else. And then the whole American turkey dinner would come out with all the stuff.
Oh my goodness.
So the minute you got there, the first thing they said to you was, don't fill up on the antipasta.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I'll eat at your house anytime, Tony.
Check out my cookbook.
Damn, I wrote that down. I'm gonna buy it.
My meatballs were put up against Bobby Flay's meatballs online, and guess what? I kicked his butt.
Nice.
Yes! You beat Bobby Flay!
My meatballs beat Bobby Flay.
Oh.
Check it out. Go to Dish. You'll see.
Oh yes, I'm getting it.
Okay. Awesome. You never, when you guys, you tune in for the professionals, you tune in for Tony Danza, and you stay for the meatballs and don't fill up on any pasta.
Yeah, that's what they're here for.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. So I want to get into a few more stories while we got you here, Tony. So one of the fun things that you did that I really thought was really cool is like your lesson planning. You really put time and effort in. Like you didn't just print something off and go, okay, we're going to read this book and write this essay. You did some stuff. So the scavenger hunt, and you did 2 of them. And so kind of walk me through the germ of the idea, some of the details of it, and what happened.
Yeah, this good.
Well, it came out of the David Cohen thing. Trying to find a way to make them get involved and make them critically think. That was the thing. So we were doing Of Mice and Men, and I showed them the movie, the Burgess Meredith movie, and we were analyzing the book and going through it. And when we finished, we were getting close to being finished. I was thinking about an exam, what I was going to do for an exam. And then, I don't know why, but I just was thinking about how could I get them involved. And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember exactly how I came up with it, but I decided a scavenger hunt. And I got other teachers involved and other kids involved, and I got janitors involved at the station. So you had these stations all over the school. And remember, it's a huge school, so it was perfect for this. Although the rule was you were not allowed to run in the hall, but this thing was a race. So
So, whatever.
Yeah. So what happened is that you'd have to go to each thing, and you'd have to have, I can't remember all the questions, but you'd have to answer a question or perform a task. And then everybody had a passport. They got their passport stamped, and then they went to the next place. And it became this incredible thing. And I'm telling you right now, you call up them kids, they could tell you everything about Of Mice and Men. Because they learned it that way. I'll give you another example. I got another one I did, this was the most frightening thing. I said to David, I have to teach Shakespeare next week. I start Julius Caesar next week. I said, I'm Tony Danza. I can't read Shakespeare. What are you crazy? No, you can do it. I said, well, why? Why do we even teach this to them? I mean, that language, why do we do that? He says critical thinking. He says that's exactly wrong. And I love Julius Caesar. In the affairs of men, there is a tide taken at its flood leads on to good fortune. Omitted, the rest of your life is mired in the shoals and the miseries. So I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Nice.
I love it. I love it.
All I know is Et tu Brute. That's all I got.
I found this thing called...
I know what you're saying. It was in the book, and I can't think of it either. It's like, you should know it. This goes Shakespeare in, like, real language, but there's
like No Fear Shakespeare?
No Fear Shakespeare. Thank you. So No Fear Shakespeare. So I find it, and what it does is it gives you the Old English and the New English, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was I told the kids, after we go through the thing, I said, okay, I got an idea. And they were all like, oh, God, here we go. I go, no, it's great. I said, we're going to do a thing called Shakespeare the Street. They go, what? I said, this is what we do. You know that language you guys all talk that I hate, that drives me crazy, IBUB, X, and all that stuff? Well, I want you to do the scene we just did in the way you would do it in the street. And it became so amazing. They got into that. I mean, there was one great moment where they were going good. Somebody said, hey, Caesar, you'd be drawling. Drawling. So I go, time, hold it, time. What the hell's drawling? They go, off the chain. I go, oh, okay, keep going. So it was like, and I'm telling you, I bet you to this day, they remember it. They really do.
And that's such a great connection for them to make, too, because a lot of them don't understand why Shakespeare's using that language, and it's because that's how we all use language.
Right.
Like, one of my students, I was arguing with them about Macbeth, and I love Macbeth, and they were like, okay, I get it, but, like, why is he saying it this way? Like, why does he just say it normally? And I looked at her and I went, hey, can I ask you a question? So, sure. Sup? She goes, nothing. I'm like, what does sup mean? That's not a word. It means what's up. That's not... 200 years from now, people are going to say, why does what's up mean how are you doing? Why not just say, how are you doing?
Yeah, oh, I'm with you. That's exactly what it was. Yeah, but what was interesting again is that how the arts comes into this. Anytime you can get them to perform, anytime, any kind of performance, the poetry class, the poetry contest, one of my favorite things ever. And by the way, I filmed this. I have this on film, and every once in a while I take it out and I watch it just to get it. To make my heart sing. So it was unbelievable. I told the kids, you have to memorize a poem. It's good for you. Someday you'll remember this. You'll remember it your whole life. If you're ever in a foxhole, you'll have this thing. You can't sleep at night. You could recite it to yourself. And I got a couple of the teachers who were really favorite teachers in the school to come up and recite the poems that they learned when they were kids, which really got the kids like, oh, all right, yeah. And then the big thing was, we can't memorize 10 lines. It's so I says, I'll tell you what you do. Not only can you memorize 10 lines, but pick a poem off the internet right now, give it to me, and I'll memorize it tonight. And I will come in tomorrow, and I will know the poem memorized in one night. Mm. So they picked If by Rudyard Kipling, 32 lines.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. That's a beauty.
You keep your head about you, all that stuff. Well, I learned it, and I came in the next day, and of course it was like, "Oh, you knew that, you didn't learn that." I said, no, I did, but they got it, and it became an incredible thing. And of course, Paige had an incident where she was reading a poem that reminded her of her father, and she couldn't get through it, and then finally she did get through it. And it was such an amazing moment for the class. And Daniel, my big football player, told a story about his grandmother in an old folks home, and everybody was crying. But again, it was making them perform, and it goes back to David Cohen's words about just hearing them rather than hearing yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you said you got Paige to kind of push through and perform. How did you do that? How do you get a kid from saying like just shutting down to the point where they actually are ready to put themselves out there?
You got to understand something about Paige. She was tough. I mean, I think there was only about one or two guys in the class could take her. And she was ready. She was just ready and a moment's notice to just do it. And in fact, leading up to the poetry contest, I said to them, okay, listen, I'll tell you what I'll do. For the next 20 minutes, memorize your poems. And remember, I wasn't allowed to see the poems. The only criteria was they had to be more than 10 lines, and they had to be able to Google the author and the poem online. So they started to memorize, and I started to walk around the room, like trying to glance at the poems and see, And Paige was like second seat from the end, and of course, near the back. And I walked up, and I was behind her, and I didn't think she knew I was there. But I guess she sensed that I was there. And I was sort of reading the poem, and I could tell it had dad, and it was, you weren't there for me when I graduated. And I started to walk away as if I didn't even stop. And I was starting to cry a little bit. It was my want. And she said to me, are you crying? Mr. Danza, are you crying? I said, no, I'm not crying. I tried to cry. Cut to. Now remember, the poster board had to have the poem, some of the figurative language, the type of poem, all the stuff that we do. And then you have to get up and tell who you are. You have to introduce yourself. I always make them introduce themselves. Who are you? You know who I am. Skill. I know who you are, but you just introduce us.
Yeah, it's a good skill.
Yeah.
So yes, of course. So they introduce themselves, and then they launch into it. So she launches into the poem, and by the way, remember what I tell you, she's the toughest. She's one of the everybody knows she's tough. She launches into the poem, and she gets going, and she's about 3 lines into it, and she just stops. And the way she stops, it's as if somebody turned her off. And she stands there for a second, and all of a sudden she just dissolves into tears. She starts to cry, and she runs out of the room.
Oh.
So okay, relax. I grab tissues. Everybody sit here. I go run out in the hallway. She's crying. And I said, Paige, take it easy. Here, take it. I said, Paige, this is what poetry is for. This is what it's supposed to do. This is exactly what it's supposed to do. This is why we're doing this. It's supposed to make you feel. And look what's happened to you. This is so great. Do you want to go back inside and get through this, do you? She goes, yes, I do. I said, you think you can do it? Yeah, I gotta be gangster. I'll be gangster. I said, okay, be anything you want. Just get to the poem. Go back inside. And she starts to do the poem again. This time she gets about 4 lines in, and she starts to cry. And she looks up at the ceiling. I'll never forget it. It's just when I think about it. She looks up at the ceiling and says, why can't I read this freaking poem? And she runs back out into the hallway. And I go get the tissues and I go back into the hallway. And it was sort of a redo of what we did before. And again, I told her, I know you can do this. You can, and I tried to just buoy her and bolster her. And she went back in. And she got through that poem. And I'm telling you, to watch her battle to get through it, it really, it's both anguish, but thrilling.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's just amazing. Just amazing. And by the way, that little stupid poem contest, I'm telling you, I bet you right now, you call it Pepper did Paul Revere. I bet you these kids remember those poems,
Yes.
I certainly remember If.
Okay. So not quite as emotional as yours, but it was kind of emotional.
Remember the first rule, hun.
What's that?
That you
don't get fired? Yeah,
Yes.
that's rule number 1, don't get fired.
Okay.
So, so this young man, a sensitive young man, I will say, okay? So kind of had some, I knew he had personal issues to begin with. He was just like a really gentle guy and didn't fit in really well with a lot of other kids. We're sitting there, we're taking a test. So if you're a medium teacher, which I am, the room's stone cold silent when you're taking a test, hopefully, right?
Sure.
My first year they weren't. They just, hey, what's the answer? I don't know. I'm like, you shut up. No, you don't. So, so the kid, and I guess this is the word, he snarts. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
He sneeze farts.
Oh.
So he must have been holding the fart in, and he sneezes, and the fart comes out the other end, and, like a trumpet. And he has the nose, and then oh my God, the class is hysterical. He doesn't have a friend in the class. Everyone's laughing at poor little, George here, and he gets up and he walks out. He doesn't say anything to me. I can't say anything. I can't leave. The kids are taking a test, and he literally is gone for 15 minutes. I'm like, I hope he didn't soil himself or who knows what happened. But the kid comes in and I see him and I'm like, dude, and with kids, we talk about this on here sometimes and other times. There are rules and there are times that the rules don't apply. You know what I mean? And when a kid has that situation, you don't need a pass. You don't need my permission. Yep. I'm not mad at you. You're not in trouble that you just got up and walked out. You were just so overwhelmed.
No, I can get with that. Yeah. My classic is a classic story of doing. I had a student Algernon. He's like a man. He was 16 with a mustache. Oh man, he was and he had no time for school. He really just didn't have any time for school. And he gave me a hard time the whole year. And during the year, one of the big things what happened was the principal wanted to go on the trip with us. And when they heard the principal wanted to go on the trip with us, they were all, oh no, we can't have any fun with the principal. And I said to them, this is a perfect time to teach you a very important lesson. And if you learn it, it will serve you well for the rest of your life. It's called making the best of a bad situation. Mm-hmm. Because let me explain something to you. She's coming with us, whether you like it or not. And we can tell, we can handle it one of 2 ways. We can tell her we don't want her to come, hurt her feelings, or we can write her a letter and say, hey, Mrs. Carroll, we wouldn't have gone to New York without you. And maybe someday when we need the principal's help, she'll be there for us. So it took me a while to see the wisdom of my logic, but they went for it. And what we found during the year, the same thing, making the best of a bad situation would come through in the literature. It's in Mockingbird. It's in a lot of the stories. In fact, I made them chant it with me. Make the best of a bad situation. It was, but anyway, the end of the year comes, and Algernon and I he was handcuffed. I mean, he was a tough kid. Northeast has a police station downstairs, which is a whole other. Could have a conversation around that.
Yeah.
But he really was a handful, and he just, if you told him something, most times just disregard you. But I wouldn't give up on him. I never gave up on him. I really did. And he wrote me a note afterwards and said that, by the way, that you never gave up on me. Which, But anyway, he walked into the classroom. It was, again, the end of the year, the 2 weeks when nobody's doing nothing. And he walked into the classroom, and he stood there, and he didn't say anything. And I looked over, and I was like, okay, you're not going to say anything? I'll go back to my papers. So I went back to my papers, and I hear, hey, Danza, which is what he called me. Hey, Danza, I quoted you today. I said, you quoted me today? He said, yeah. I told my friend, make the best of a bad situation. And so if you're a young teacher and that happens to you, then you know I did something. That kid's going to remember that. Yeah. And he got it from me. And that's why I'm here. And if you can keep that in mind, when the going gets tough, when you got personal development and a hard-ass assistant principal and a mother that is mad at you because her son's a bad student, if you can keep in mind why you're there, you can get through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very, very true. And we like, I have a thing on my door, and it says, today is the day you make a difference. And I keep saying that to myself and to other teachers, like, you don't always know when you make, sometimes that kid writes you that note, sometimes that kid says, I quoted you, and sometimes that kid's quoting you somewhere out in the world and referencing you, and you have absolutely...
How about this one, Mealy? How about this one? I had a girl who sat there every day and just gave me dirty looks. And because we were on camera, you could see it. You know what I mean? And she just was like a good student. She was lesbian, out, and so she was really, it was hard. She was not the most comfortable kid. But all day long.
Tony's making a pouty face, podcast listeners.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. So anyway, thanks a lot. I keep forgetting.
That's why I'm here,
I'm sorry. I keep forgetting. Anyway,
it's okay. It's all good.
Podcast is new to me.
That's
anyway,
fine.
So
that's
us
fine.
too.
We barely know what we're doing. I don't know.
Anyway, years later, I get out of the blue. I got a letter from her that she was sorry that she didn't enjoy my class more, that she knows how hard I tried, and she thanked me for everything I did for her. I totally thought this kid hates me.
Right.
But you don't even realize the times you have an effect on them. And I think, that's what people don't realize. They don't realize that even a little time, even a little attention makes a big difference.
It does. Yeah. It does.
I love how just in the beginning, how you kind of started out with that, with, it's not about so much you teaching them and what you know and transferring that to them, but them knowing how much you care.
Yes.
Because as soon as they know, you may be the only one that cares about them. And as soon as they know that someone cares, that just changes the world for them. Yeah. And I love how it sounds like you did that in these kids' lives. You're doing it through the PAL acting camp. And, they will go on to pass that on, where they will care for someone else and help that person to become a better human being.
I hope so. I got a call today from one of my students. Alex Santiago called me today. I met him. He put his hand out. You put your hand out, and then you go to reach his hand, and he gave me he gave me.
Brush your hair back. That joke never gets old.
But he called me today to see how I was doing.
So what you said and then what Lindy said, one thing we haven't touched on yet that I think is really cool and really fun, I'm sure you got some good stories about it, is the talent show at Northeast. And I think there was like a couple of them, and there's one that goes on every year. And
Northeast High School is the third oldest high school in America.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah. It's not in the same building it was originally, but it was the third oldest high school in America. They had 210 teachers there. They never had a teacher talent show. And so immediately upon arriving, I said, we got to have a teacher talent show. and it was so great because the teachers really got into it. And the kids got to see the teachers in a totally different light.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? They, it was unbelievable. In fact, one of the greatest things, Joe Connolly, your friend of mine. So Joe Connolly, he's a math teacher and he works in the basement. That's where the tough kids are. And he called me. Every year they do a thing, Joe and 4 or 5 other male teachers, they do a boy band.
Nice.
Nice.
Called Voltron. And every year they have to outdo themselves. Last year they were in tiny shorts with lights all over them. Oh, please, unroll
Oh,
my
my
goodness.
goodness. Wow.
But anyway, the first year they did it, and they were great, by the way. And I think they actually won one of the prizes, actually, that year. But the first year they did it, and he called me that next day, and he said that when he went to class that morning, because the kids went crazy. The show was such a big success.
Oh, yeah.
The kids went crazy.
Oh, yeah.
He said when he walked into his class that day, the kids gave him a standing ovation.
Oh.
Oh,
And, for a
wow.
teacher, that's pretty good. Especially
It really
these
is.
kids. These kids were tough kids.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
So
The
then,
basement kids.
So then when I finished, basement kids.
We're gonna make that show, The Basement Kids. By the way,
Yeah.
Tony. Okay, call one of your guys. We're getting that one going. The Basement
Every
Kids.
year since then, I've put on the Teachers versus Student Talent Show.
Nice.
They did a competition, and there's a team trophy. And I put up some money, so you get $1,000 first prize, $500 second prize, $350 third prize, and $500 for the best short movie.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
And so we make a team of teacher acts and a team of student acts. And the music teacher there now is Dr. Flewellen, one of the greats. And before him was Tim Murphy, which was another great, 2 great guys. But Dr. Flewellen and I, we put on this show, and like 2,000 people come. And I go down 3 days before, and I do all the local news stations with Joe Connolly. We do the stations, go on, and we tell people come to the show. And people go all out. They go all out. Teachers go all out. Kids go all out. It's big money, by the way, it's money.
Right.
Yeah.
In the first few years, we had an applause-o-meter.
Oh.
No, it's not good. It's not good because the kids can't lose. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't lose. So now we have judges, and unfortunately, we didn't get to do it this year because of COVID. But it's an 11-year tradition now. 11 years. It's
Nice.
That's great.
and one of the great things about the talent show too is that every year we pick a master of ceremonies. One kid, they have to audition. They have to come up and do something and say, and then we say, okay, you're going to be the and he's like my co-host.
Oh.
And we do it, and we do it like a Hollywood
Award show, whatever.
award show, like a variety show, more like a
Okay.
like each thing's an act, and we have like little cards, and we make jokes about the actor, the joke act after, It's really something. Again, we raise some money to keep the programs together, the after school programs together and stuff. And when we have assemblies with the PAL program, the schools are so starved for arts. That they're so happy to see us. They're just starved for arts. They just don't have the funding.
Yeah.
And so anything you can give them, they're thrilled with it. And I'm telling you, I think that we really don't realize how much it would make a difference if we had those kind of things in the schools.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Mealy and I, both talk about some of our big passions and drives. And I always say, like, how much the arts really do help the kids and help them develop and help them through tough times. And Mealy's always talking about how important it is to build a community in your school and make, kids proud of where they go and make teachers feel connected and feel proud of where they are. And that just sounds like a really awesome way to do both.
Yeah, right. And the Teacher Talent Show was exactly what was, trying to build that. Yeah. No, I really believe in that. You got to get people involved. You got to, you got to feel proud of it. You got to have school spirit.
Right.
You got to have, you got to really do that.
Right.
Every time I start every speech, any Vikings in the house?
And that's the thing. And at our school, I'm the fantasy football commissioner. Okay.
Oh.
We have 30 teachers that play. There are 3 10-team leagues. Different years, we've had different ways to get draft positions. We've done laser tag. Yep. I had a thing where you had to do selfies, and you got different points. You got like 100 points if you got a selfie with the principal, and just to create that community. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
And we're not going to keep you too much longer here, Tony. Unless you want to stay all night, that's fine.
I get hungry.
But
yeah, I need some eggplant parm.
Yeah, I was eggplant parm. But
oh, you should see what I made.
Okay. But hit us with the starfish story, because I think it really dovetails nice off of what we were just saying.
I think it's a good way to end too, because it was the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It was the end of the year, and it was tough saying goodbye to everybody. The kids made me a photo album.
Oh,
my most treasured things. It's unbelievable. The last picture is all of us hugging and crying together.
Oh, man.
So I was broken up that day, and I was getting on the train to go back to New York that day. So I had to leave that day. Mm-hmm. So I was leaving, and but Lynn, she was an English teacher too. She was wonderful. She's been there like I don't know how many years, and she gave me a box. It was a present as I was saying goodbye, and I was like, I needed to get out of there. It was like I had a break. I needed to make the break because I didn't want to leave. Mm-hmm. I was dragging it out. So she gave me a box. It was a box. And what I did was I took it, I just put it in my bag, kissed everybody goodbye, and I got on the train. I was taking the train from Philly to New York, and I remembered that she had given me the box. So I opened it. It was a little plaque. And on the plaque was this little story. And it said, 2 guys walk out onto a beach after a storm has roiled the ocean and washed thousands of starfish onto the beach. The clouds break, the sun comes out and starts to bait the starfish. So one guy goes crazy. He goes out one by one, throwing starfish like this. And the other one's standing there watching him. And he says, what are you doing? You're not going to make that much of a difference. And the guy throwing the starfish takes one, he throws one into the water, and he goes, made a difference to that one. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're up against.
Yes.
Yep.
Try to make a difference to that one.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it's
awesome.
a gift. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to end it there. I'm just slightly disappointed that we didn't quite make Tony Danza cry, because I really did want to get some tears on the show.
Do it. I can do it. I want you to know something. It's interesting about being an actor. Sandy Meisner, the great acting teacher, said, you need 20 years to be a good actor. And I've had 40 years. So I think I finally got it. But what's interesting,
John was great.
What's interesting is that I feel so close to the surface emotionally, both because of what's going on, the COVID, the demonstrations, just everything, children. I'm just really close to the service. I miss my kids. I'm dying to have an acting job where I need to cry, because it would be so easy now.
So you get it out. There you go.
I mean, I read it. It's just, I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and I got to the word miss. I miss, and that was enough. And I'm trying to be upbeat in front of my kids. I don't want them to,
Right.
But there I was.
You crying, Mr. Danza?
You crying, Mr. Danza? Cry, baby, Mr. Danza. Cry, baby.
Well, I just want to say thank you again, Tony. We really, really appreciate you making the time. We really appreciate what you've done for the teaching profession. We appreciate, the service going in the schools and what you continue to do with everything. Like we said, we'll have links to everything and all your organizations and all that good stuff in the show notes.
Really? I hope that it's okay. I call you Mealy.
Call me. Everyone calls me Mealy. In our first episode, I've tried to convince my wife to have my name legally changed to Mealy. I don't want anyone to use my first name anymore.
Well, listen, this has been great, and I've enjoyed it. And like I said, coming from you, those kind of words that you're saying to me mean a lot, because I know what it takes to really be. I mean, I hate to even say I know what it takes, but
you do, Tony.
To see what it takes to be a teacher and to be there every day, 181 days, but who's counting? And without unprofessional development. That's it.
And so there you go, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. We just appreciate Tony, and as we always say, stay unprofessional. So, boys and girls, that's all that we have of the Tony Danza. Maybe he'll come on again sometime. We don't know. We'd love that to happen. But talking to him about that really reminds us of episode 3, where we had Miss English on. And we really got into the concepts, and we referenced it when we were talking to Tony, of making your classroom like a family. So, Miss English, whenever she walks in the teacher workroom...
Me?
Yes, you say, hello, family.
Oh, that's funny. I'm like, I say that, too. Oh,
right, and that's why I've got that. And you says the emails to the department, like... And so, first of all, I just want to say that that's awesome, and that you probably don't realize, without getting all mushy and whatever here, that occasionally there's someone that really needed to hear that day.
Is it you, Mealy?
Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's other people.
Could you pass the box of Kleenex behind
I know.
you?
I have this thing on it's above my doorway. It says, today is the day you make a difference in someone's life. Right? Because I try to remind myself that you actually do.
You do. You bring us popcorn every week.
Right.
But like, I get what you mean, though. Like, it's easy to fall into, like, the rhythm of the job and just feel like it's just another
And the
day.
angst of
Yes.
it, yeah. It really is. And especially when I think, like we said, there's negativity around, and it's not easy always to be positive, but then that other negativity can get to you, too, and you don't want that to breed. So
Yeah. So my dad tells me this story one time. He gets this letter, and this is why I remember this. And I really need him to give me a copy of that letter. Anyway, so my dad taught science, mostly biology. And he gets this letter, and it says, Dear Mr. Mealy, I remember what you taught such and such lesson. It really inspired me. Mm-hmm. I decided that day that I wanted to become a doctor.
Aww.
I'm writing to let you know today is the day that I got my MD.
Oh.
Thank you for changing my life.
That's awesome.
You know? And he's like, I don't know what I did that day. I just did the lesson the way I always do that lesson. And so we never know. We are teaching young people who are very influenceable. You know?
I mean, and everything you say, it means something to someone.
It does. You know?
Usually, like, the quiet ones in the back. Like, that's the ones I get the most feedback from.
Yeah.
The kids who, like, never talk to me all year, and they come out like, you're my favorite teacher. I'm like, I
don't even know what your voice sounds like.
Yeah.
You're like, dang. You just pulled my heartstrings.
Yeah. So,
I was tutoring a kid at a coffee shop, and this guy came in and sat down, and it's this, like, handsome young gentleman sits down next to us. And while I'm tutoring this kid, he looks at me and goes, Tedesco, right? And I went, yeah?
Depends, maybe.
He's like, I'm Gus. I went,
you've been served.
right? It's a trap. He's like, Gus. I'm like, okay. And he was like, you tutored me in middle school. I was like, no. And I don't. It's tough when you teach them when they're younger too, because as they grow into people, you don't recognize
differently.
Right.
Like, I mean,
What?
Yeah. So I
there's an Emo Phillips routine I could do, but I'm not going to. Okay.
we all appreciate that.
Bust up my boy Emo Phillips. Go ahead.
I tutored him in math when he was in like 8th grade. I'm like, what are you doing now? He's like, I'm going to school for engineering.
Nice.
It's like, you helped me get through Calc 4. I was like, I definitely did not do that.
Don't you teach English?
Yeah, but I tutor in math. I love math.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Look, I have math and you have Ibsen. All right?
Nice. So
There we go.
But the question is, do you know when or how or why you first started saying "Hello, family"? Did you do it consciously, or did you?
It had to be early on. I always say that in my classroom we're family, you know, and even like when we'll read, or you guys want to, for certain texts, you want to read as a family or want to read individually, and they know that is our house. And, you know, even with some of my classes, like where it's hard for them not to cuss in class, and I am proof that it is possible, despite how difficult it can be sometimes. Used to make them do push-ups for every cuss word they would say, and they got into it. And if kids didn't want to,
huh?
yeah, we had some really buff classes. But like kids, if they didn't want to, or they're like, I'm not doing it, someone would be like, bro, I'm doing it with you. We're family, so we can like share push-ups, right? If we're family, you know. So there's always that. It's a good culture to have in your classroom. classroom.
Yeah, that's
but
great culture
also,
building.
when I moved here, we really did become a family. I think our job is really unique in that way that we're not, even though we're in a classroom, we're not just isolated to a cubicle. We're up, we're seeing each other. You can pop into someone's room. Like, I always feel, I work with my friends.
Right.
So it's like you do football things together. We're at each other's houses. We're doing drafts together.
Right.
You know, when people are leaving and coming and going, it's like you want to get them involved. So,
right.
And it's like being in college and going around a dorm floor.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
so it's really interesting that, you know, it's like I get to see my friends every day.
Yeah, his conversation with Paige when he talked about that was all I could think about. And I enjoyed having Miss English on here because, yeah, her talks about building up those relationships, you know, turning the classroom into a family. I mean, that really helped me. And, you know, all of our conversations about graffiti and textbooks were hilarious.
Yes, there's definitely some good stuff there. So. And little known fact that in episode 3, where we talked to her about a student that had to get a restraining order from a printer, and you'll want to hear about that, is that administrator is the one that we talked to in the episode titled Mr. Admin, which I believe is episode 13. There we go. So many little ties in. For those of you that kind of love callbacks and referencing other episodes, that's how that works. So make sure you listen to those episodes as well so you can fully appreciate all the nuances of this most recent episode.
Yeah, I mean, because it was great to have Tony on, but all the things he's talking about are all the things that we're consistently talking about.
Yes, yes.
You know, building relationships and having a good sense of humor about yourself. And
so, if you came for the Tony, stick around for the unprofessional, because there's so many more. There's so many more good unprofessional, nonsensical episodes right there at your fingertips, and they're all free.
That's my favorite flavor.
Yes. Stay unprofessional.